Tell me we're on. We're on, okay. Hey, you guys. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Nathaniel asked me earlier, why are we doing this? It's kind of that, wasn't it? Why are we doing this? What yeah. What was the purpose? Because I just want to share with you that, and welcome for those of you that are watching this on Facebook. I'm going to share with you that it's a struggle for me. It's the whole idea of me sitting here sharing my ideas of consciousness or awakening or presence is what's come up is that it's through the week I think about it and I think, well, have any of you ever have demons? Sometimes they arrive in the morning, or maybe in the middle of the night. But and so the demons, do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. the demons have said, who are you to do this? Why are you doing this? What, yeah. And so, so they asked, and then Nathaniel asked, and it's a very different demon. Very different demon, because I was sharing with them that it was like, fuck. This is more difficult because what happens is that I have feelings, and doing this, I feel quite vulnerable, quite exposed, quite like, yeah. So it's not like I've been sitting at the front of the room doing this for 20 years, and I can just, so I feel exposed or vulnerable, and I was sharing with them that it's difficult, and yet I'm obviously not doing it for the money. And certainly not, I don't believe I'm doing it for fame. I resisted doing this for a long time. I've been many years in groups and in reading and being a student, if you will, a spiritual student. I think in a lot of my life I've had consciousness or awakening as a priority, and I look around and you guys wouldn't be here if it wasn't somewhere on your list, and maybe not even consciously. Maybe that many of us have sought it because we were just tired of the pain of living in our lives, and we're praying that there's something other than the way it's been. So here's what I imagine can happen. And to be honest with you, I didn't realize this. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to do this and this. It's all going to be, it's unfolded. It's come to me that. I was listening to Ram Dass the other day. Have any of you ever listened to Ram Dass? I love Ram Dass more and more. And listening to some of his stuff from the 80s and the 90s, and he was talking about the power of having a group who are interested in or committed to awakening consciousness, and that we can lift each other up, and we can, shine the light, hold up the mirror, shake each other when we fall asleep, or when we actually don't want to fucking wake up. We think we do, but we don't really want to. We, kind of pay lip service to it a bit, and I'm speaking of my own journey. Maybe none of you have ever felt like that, but we can be there for each other, and that's what I see is the possibility here. That we can actually have a group, and all I am is the facilitator. I can possibly shake your cage a little bit, and help us all to kind of shake out of it. Nathaniel and I talked about the Matrix. Now, I don't want to get all funny talking about the Matrix, but imagine that in some ways the story was true. Not necessarily true in the practical sense of it, but that most of us are actually asleep in our identities, in our judgments, in our belief systems, about God, about relationship, about money, about who we are personally, about health. We've bought into stories, and so we believe them. And unquestionably, we don't even question the stories. We're just poking along, kind of in life and in the story. And according to Ram Dass, not many of us really want to wake up. It's interesting for him to say that, because thousands of people followed him. He really did have he would go on these tours and fill rooms of thousands of people that wanted to listen to what he had to say. And his talk was always about awakening. But he said that most of us got to a place where that was it, I don't go any further than that. And recently, and I really do believe for me that it's been because of this, I found it very uncomfortable, the idea of shedding ideas, the idea of shedding ideas. And I found it very uncomfortable. I talked to a friend of mine, Barry Leafers, today, and he said, well, sounds like you're getting something out of it. So that's my hope, is that we as a group support each other, and that some of us make it a priority this year. It doesn't have to be, awakening doesn't need to be our number one priority for the rest of our life, but I believe that we become self-actualizing as time goes on. Maslow talks about the hierarchy of needs, and we do get to a point where, the jet has left, or the train has left the station, and we couldn't stop it if we wanted to. I just believe that this could be a huge asset for everybody if we show up on a regular basis. We come and we build relationships, not based on our old paradigm of relationships, not telling the same stories about our relationships or our children, or maybe sometimes not telling any story at all, just being together and feeling the uncomfortableness of being together. And we all have our stories, eh? Yeah, and so that's the thing. This last little while, I've really spent a lot of time alone, and feeling disconnected. And life has presented itself to me this way recently. No job. Who are you without your job? And not in a relationship. Who are you if you're not in a relationship and you don't have a job? Kids are all grown up. Don't need me. So it's been a really interesting place to be and to feel into, because I believe that one of the primary places we're hooked in the illusion is in our identities. And I'm even going to let my Harley go. And there's a picture that comes up of me actually not having any furniture and not having a place to live, and really feeling into that, my attachments. I sit in the house and I look around at the stuff. I think, gosh, I have memories in that couch. Anyway, so it's a bit of a scary prospect, actually, to imagine letting go of our identities and our stories, identifying them. For some of us in the 12-step world, it's almost like, writing down the things that keep us from connecting with Source, connecting with the moment, And identity is one of those things that can do that. You know, another one of my identities, I mean, I used to be the biker guy, I'm the recovered alcoholic guy, those are all identities. And they can keep me from really being present, because it's all a story. So that's my belief. That's what I'd like to do. Is anybody interested in that? In having spending the next months or year together? I keep thinking a year of actually growing together as a group and having, being committed to touching base with each other and doing some reading. I love Eckhart Tolle, and maybe, how many times have you read his stuff over and over? Alan Watts. Yeah, I know. This guy's got it plugged in his phone all the time, and because the trouble with being asleep, of course, is we don't know we're asleep until somebody comes along and wakes us up, or the misery of our being asleep, because we sabotage ourselves in our sleep to such a degree that we're banging into walls or we've lost everything, or we're upsetting the world around us, because often in our asleepness we're quite selfish. We're not actually seeing anybody outside of us or the needs of others. We're living in our asleepness. We're often living in a needy place, or a taker's place, being just trying to get looked after, as opposed to being awake to the degree where we become concerned in a service way for others. And I mean, there's degrees of it, isn't there? There's not. I remember when I was a practicing alcoholic, when I was in the throes of my addictions, I don't think I could have been more asleep than I was then, and running from feeling and just totally, but somehow knowing there was more, so the word awakening is really that, let's wake up together. Let's invite people to come who are interested in waking up. Let's ask the question, of our friends, do they want to? Are they interested in enhanced consciousness? So my belief is that this is work. It's work. It's like this. It's not. We can't come to a group and have somebody do it for us. and so we can't sit in the group and not speak, because we don't share ourselves and we don't expose ourselves. Then we're playing safe, and if we're playing safe, then we can't. How do we wake up? Safe is I don't want to wake up. Safe is I'm afraid, and it's okay to be afraid. I think it's amazing to recognize our fear and say, that's scary, but let's create a bit of a safe container where we can practice waking up. We can practice being uncomfortable, and in our uncomfortableness, become comfortable with our uncomfortableness. So we move into, and it just keeps opening and opening and opening. So that's what we're doing, and what do you think of that?
I think it's important.
Do you?
For yourself in uncomfortable situations to grow and change.
Yes. Yeah. Here's the thing. It's we're going to run. I believe that we'll all hit walls, because our beliefs are many of them are very dug in, just really dug in, and so my experience over the years has been that we'll get to a place, and I have lots of times in the growth process where we said, no, I'm not crossing that line. I'm not letting go of that idea, and that's where it gets fun, or juicy. And why would we want to wake up?
I think there's a need to know the truth.
Pardon me?
There's always a need to know, like, truth, capital T.
Yes.
And if all these things are kind of veils against it, something, I think, probably human on that. You know what I mean? You're nodding.
So to know the truth.
Yeah. Not just like facts, but
Yes, I understand. Yeah. And
Understand emotionally.
understand emotionally? Okay.
and the truth will set you free.
So truth is a bit of a relative thing, isn't it? Yeah. Is there a truth?
Yeah, you start to sound like Plato.
I'm just asking, so the truth, I think, shifts as we move through different levels. Has anybody read Hawkins? It would be my assignment this year to read Hawkins. Dr. David Hawkins built this amazing scale of consciousness. And in the scale of consciousness, he helps us to see when we're in the lower vibrations of grief and shame and guilt and anger and desire and pride. And in those lower vibrations, we're actually not able to create much. They're not creative vibrations like acceptance and willingness and love, which are in the higher vibrations. But we're pretty attached to things that keep us in the lower vibrations. Like we all, I think, for most of us, think that oh gosh, anywhere I go here is going to be trouble. But we think that we've been victimized. And because of our belief in victimization, then we get coached to forgive. And forgiveness, from where I sit, is me believing that somebody did something against me. And if life is for me, it can never be against me. So then there's nothing to forgive. But we get stuck in this idea because it's a concept that we've been sold really, really hard, that we must forgive. Forgive, in my opinion, denotes that we've been victimized. And so imagine living in a place of gratitude and love, as opposed to, and I'm not saying that forgiveness isn't important at one level of the ascension, of moving up the scale, because forgiveness is, because if we were certain that he did something against me, and I want you to know that I can be sometimes certain, I haven't got this mastered. It's only in moments like this when I can actually see it and say, wow, there is nothing in this life is against me. Nothing. How could it be? It can only be because I've made it that way. I've decided it's that way and put myself in that position of being a victim. So where was I going with that? Just how we hang on to those things, or we can hang on to that stuff, and we build a story around it. Does anybody have a victim story? Just for fun, and you don't have to let go of it right away. James.
Do I have a victim story?
Yes.
Yeah, I have lots of stories that I could place into a victim mentality. Do I believe I'm a victim? No.
No.
But I could use those stories to place myself in that
Yeah.
really easily.
Yeah.
In many circumstances, in many situations.
Yes.
Big ones, little ones.
Yeah. Anybody have a personal one that you can think of that's kind of still relevant? and because it's fun to recognize that we identify as a victim. We do. We have. I can do it. My gosh, I'm a victim of a bad school system. I never finished high school, and it was this, and I spent a fair amount of my life imagining that it was because they didn't understand ADD at that time, and so I just didn't fit in, and I was a victim of a poor school system, and I lived that for a while, and I also felt I used that to be a victim in business. I didn't get enough education. It's a wonder I was able to have the success I've had, and so I've colored that as opposed to what an asset that was. I didn't get brainwashed at school. You're all victims because you went. Just kidding. Anyway, so Doug, you got a victim story?
You know I did.
I could probably tell.
So I was a victim of depression my whole life. I was brought up by a depressed father who committed suicide, and I believed that I was a victim of depression myself for so many years.
Yes.
Antidepressants, excuses, whatever. And then I woke up and said, I'm not fucking a victim anymore. And I'm not depressed anymore.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we'll come back to this. Let's meditate for a while. And somebody was here last week or 2 weeks ago and said that we didn't meditate enough. I at one time I thought we were going to have a meditation class, but how much can you really talk about meditation? And not that meditation isn't a way to awaken, because it is. When we meditate and we get to watch our mind and the thoughts that run through it, and eventually we actually get to see that we're not our mind and we're not those thoughts. They're just, and that comes as a result of meditation. We're like, oh, look at that. I'm thinking whatever, I'm feeling, and as a result, do thoughts come before feelings, or feelings come before thoughts?
Thoughts before feelings.
Often thoughts before feelings?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Well, in my case.
yes. So if we have a thought of, of somebody's going to be mad at us, then fear comes up. And fear's like a feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can be a feeling in the body. And so if we get to a place where we recognize that the thoughts aren't really us, we're watching them in our meditation. We sit and we meditate and we just watch the thoughts and recognize that the mind is an amazing tool. It's like, it's amazing. It has so many nuances, and it takes care of us, and we look after our kids, and we do all the things that we do with our mind, but it was never meant to be the master. And so the part of what happens in awakening is we recognize that the inmates have been running the show, and we can get free, and we're no longer a victim of our mind and of our thoughts, and that most of the big teachers of the world that I've listened to over the years have said that the thoughts are not even ours. They're just, God knows where they came from. And we think like thousands of thoughts a day, and maybe I'm picking up on JR's thoughts. I'm sure I am. And so we're in a room, and that's another thing. Imagine we're in a room where we all have made a decision that we're going to, commit to a certain degree to awakening this year, and we're going to lift the vibration of this whole city as a result of it. Because as we become conscious of when we're in complaint and when we're in judgment and when we're in fear, and as we're conscious of that, it melts, and then we move up into love, and it can have a vibrational effect on the whole planet, and that's kind of inspiring, isn't it? Or a thought that we could, James tells me that you go to the school your kids go to and you bring all this love in there and lift the vibration of that whole place. Fun. Anyway, I think that's neat. You know, he talks about like that. You're like this angel. Fun. So we can all do that. You know, bring love everywhere we go, and operate in love, and have an intention to operate in love, and set intention together, and spend time together, bringing that about, and encouraging each other to do that, and maybe have more folks come and join us, and yeah, is that too big an idea? No. Okay, so Nathaniel, that's what I want to do. Yeah, that's. The other thing is, I don't want to do the organizing. I don't. You know, what?
You don't want to do it, okay.
So
Set it up on your Excel, it's fun.
so you. Well, thank you. Yeah, I need help with that. Just want to say that, you know, we're going to do this, and yeah, yes, spend a year doing this, and you know, and have groups, and do potlucks, and you know, fall in love with each other, and have that love vibrate out into our community. You know, I need help. So, and it's hard for me to ask for help. That's a belief of mine, you know. So to even ask for help is like a stretch. It's like, because I want you to think I have it all together. Right? Does anybody relate to that? Anybody else have? Is anybody in the room that has trouble asking for help? Yeah. Not you, Derek?
I'm not sure about that.
Anyway, so thank you. That's been up for me. And so yeah, let's do it. So we're going to meditate. For those of you that have never been with us, I think there's only one here. You know, tonight for the first time. Welcome, Trevor. Yeah, and so we sit for 10 minutes, and when we meditate, you know, we breathe. Remember to breathe, and just use the breath to bring us back into the moment. So when the mind gets going really crazy and it's thinking about all kinds of stuff, like, you know, out of the moment, and because the mind never thinks in the moment, the mind's always in the past or the future, right? And when the mind's going, just watch it and breathe. And when breathing brings us into the moment. And if the mind's going and it brings up panic, or brings up you know, fear, or brings up emotions, just bring love, this energy, bring, you know, the idea of God or universal intelligence into this moment, into this thought, into this being, and it just melts, because again we're bringing presence into it. And Derek, what does your friend say when you bring? What's the question that your friend asks?
Rupert Spira?
Yeah, what does he ask?
Well, if something arises, like a thought or an emotion,
Yes.
emotions are a body's response to a thought.
Yes.
So if either of those that arise, then I can just ask myself the question, to who does that thought arise?
Okay.
And it moves the focus of the attention inward
Yes.
to where the thought comes from.
Yes.
And if we just relax our attention inward more and more, it'll drop away. And if you can use language for it, you just relax back into that stillness.
Yes.
From which all things arise.
Yes.
And then I'm not bothered by the emotions any longer. And it's just a simple dropping away of the thoughts and emotions.
Nice. So it's another way to bring us present, right? We come into it's beautiful. It's just another way to bring us into this moment and into presence, and and just let it relax or surrender into this moment. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Eckhart Tolle, that when he does that, he's got that bell or chime at the start and finish of his meditations. And we have the bowl here.
Yes.
So as the bowl makes its sound, the sound will come from that stillness. So we could just simply notice that. And as the bowl is stopped making the sound, you can follow the sound back into stillness as it fades away. And that helps widens the focus of attention. And just see if you can notice that.
So more expanded. Nice. Thank you. Beautiful. So here we go into the stillness, which means I'm actually not going to talk tonight. So just Come back when you're ready. Isn't that beautiful? That was so great. You couldn't script that.
How you plan it?
Not,
Oh, I love bagpipes.
yeah, not as far as I'm aware. Wow. It was gorgeous. Um, can
Amanda said pipes made her jump.
so it reverberated across the. That's beautiful. I love what Derek said earlier, that, and I've said it many times. When we're meditating and there's sound, to actually, although this case was impossible, but to actually check in to where we hear the sound. Because we hear the sound, it seems like it's outside, but the sound, we actually hear it inside. And so when we come inside to the sound, we can expand out with the sound. And an expansion happens, like Derek was saying. And we instead of being these, contracted small beings, we become more expanded, which is doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just that we can have a really expanded feeling of the space and of how big we are, and a more sense of oneness with the sound and with the space, and you can even expand beyond the room, beyond the city, and
I love to do that at nighttime when I'm at the ocean. Is my favorite spot.
yes.
So you can hear buoys way off in the ocean, waiting with Thanos. If you have good hearing.
Nice. So I thought we'd talk just a little bit about, we started earlier about identities, because it's been up for me, and know that I'm going through a surrendering of identities, and maybe we could just share a little bit about, maybe to begin with, share about an identity, that just an awareness of an identity that you're carrying. And then maybe after that we could share an identity that we'd like to let go of, or a story that we'd like to go, because we identify with story, right? And we can, we're full of them, stories of our past and of whatever, abuse or being bullied or being a bully, or the relationship that didn't. By the way, I've never had an unsuccessful relationship. They've all been successful. And do you know what I mean? But in my mind, at times, I've considered some of them not. And because they didn't work out the way I thought they were going to, or didn't, were shorter than I imagined. And so identity. And it just, we're just going to go through and spend time looking at these things, and judgment, identity, complaint, fear, anger, and not so that we could go into those, but so that we can surrender them. And if we don't identify where the things that are keeping us in our story and asleep, then it's hard to let them go and to surface. So we're like a cork. As we release those things, we float up. It's a nice analogy, isn't it? Yeah. So,
I'm kind of like envisioning, well, for things that I have been paying attention to a lot, I guess, is the divine feminine energy, and a lot in the meditations, the guided ones that I've been listening to are the lotus flower flowing up to the tongue.
so you imagine us as a group, like or you as an individual?
I mean, for the last year, I envisioned that.
Yes.
Myself, definitely.
So imagine, I'm going to just throw one at you. Imagine that there is no feminine and there is no masculine. That we are, and who we are. We are beings. We're spiritual beings. We're neither this nor that. And that in some ways the story that men fall into of how to be a man, or whatever it is that the story we have about masculinity can keep us in the story of, of how we're supposed to be. And do you know what I mean? Yes. And
Yes, I understand what you're saying. I have a hard time, I guess, perceiving it with the story I have in my head.
yes.
In regards to.
No, I get it. I just, because, when you talked about the feminine, and I love the feminine in me and in you. And I also recognize that one of the great teachers said, when you can see a man as a woman and a woman as a man, and no difference in then there's freedom. And I forget who said that, but Paul used to quote it a lot. And because I'm pretty attached to this idea of me being a man, and I am physically. Pardon me?
I just wondered if it was Lao Tzu or not.
Might have been, yeah. Might have been Lao Tzu. Anyway, I hear your story about the blossom of the. Yeah. Imagine if we could shed the idea of being one or the other this year, and see each other as just beautiful beings. That's a big myth to bust, isn't it? Yeah, has possibilities. So, Frank, tell us something that you're attached to in your identity.
Attached to?
Yeah.
I'm sort of kind of rediscovering myself the last couple of years, and certainly feel that there's a suppressed part of me that really wants to be a joyful person, a person that wants to make connection with other joyful people, and that's an identity that I want to explore further.
So you have an identity of not being very joyful.
No, I think an identity that I want to, do away with is the sort of selfish, resentful side of myself that,
Uh-huh.
kind of predominated who I was for many years. And coming to recognize why that was happening, and using mindfulness to try to overcome those, or letting those thoughts and emotions control my behavior, and kind of bringing it back to being present, and letting that help me find the joyfulness that I feel is my true self.
Mm-hmm. So the identity, how would you call it? You, in a couple of words, just angry son of a bitch?
No.
Could have been.
Serious guy.
Yeah. Serious, okay, serious.
Certainly more serious and reserved, and certainly more prone to building resentment as a result of my own behavior.
Right. Well, if we get anything right this year, you're going to resent me a time or two. Yeah. So, okay, nice, and we're going to like play with that, so we can hold that lightly and let it go. That's a beautiful part. Any identities around work? You're fireman.
No, I'm not a fireman, but yeah, scientist, build constructs in the lab.
That's cool.
Cook viruses, stuff like that.
All right.
Yeah, that's my work identity.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly.
Nice. Here we do. We identify where we live in, what neighborhood we live in. What time we drive to work. we put ourselves in all these little boxes, and where we work and who we work with and all of that. I won't ask you anything tonight, but I know you're going to burst in. It's coming. I'll just look at you until you finally do. You should have known that when he said, "We're not talking tonight." I told.
Amanda posted, "I'd like to shed the story or idea in my very thoughts of the feeling of being lost. Recognize I am being of everything and not fight to become something other than just that."
Can you say that again?
She would like to shed the story or idea in her thoughts of feeling of being lost. So she feels she's lost.
So she's got an identity of being lost?
Yeah.
Yes.
So recognize that she's being of everything and not fight to become something other than just that. So just to be.
Oh. Is that our Amanda?
Yeah.
Hi, Amanda. Love you. We want you to come and visit us. Amanda's amazing. Part of the crew. Who else got, let's play with some identities.
Oh, I have a good victim identity. I'm a lone parent, which is even bigger than a single parent. And there's no other parent helping. And that identity pretty hard.
But who's the parent? I think.
Who's the parent? That's true. I'm also a kid.
But I do hang on to that
Yes.
story. And she's 19 now, so I've been doing it for 19 years. It's ingrained in there. It's in there. Yeah. And I don't like it. I use it as a victim story when I'm feeling like I got too much on my shoulders and too much on my plate and I can't manage. And and I don't want it.
Nice.
Sometimes I can release it.
So one of the things that as we go around the room and we talk to each other tonight, if you guys could remember, like that's a real clear, when JR's story comes up of the lone parent.
Poke me.
Yeah, or just grin at her. Just say, "Yeah, I know, you poor thing." And so we get reminded. I remember being in group with Paul years ago, and I used to do this thing. I'd look across the room and I go, and it was just like this, and I know it was terrible. And so one day Paul said, "Do you know you do this?" And I had no idea that I was doing it. It was part of my facial facade, right? I was asking a question with my eyes or something, whatever I was doing, and then it was terrible. I couldn't stop it. And people would, I'd be looking across the room at somebody and they'd be doing it back at me. So, because we do unconscious things, right? And to, yeah.
Communication.
Yeah, it was. But I was always asking the same question, which was, do you see me? Whatever it was. It was, wanting to be seen, I think.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. With the eyes. Gary, do you have an identity that you've worked with? Tell us who you are. Or don't. Tell us who you have been holding on to of who you are that may not be actually who you want to be.
I've been holding on to a little bit of an
Just so you know, all of this identity stuff is addiction as well. It's at a different level, but you know, we're all addicted to our story. It just doesn't, well, I was going to say it just doesn't kill us, but it does. It does. It takes us out of the possibility of living, being alive, because the story's dead. So addiction, yes. So you have an addiction story?
Yeah. Trying to kick the alcohol thing. Seems to have taken hold of me for quite a while, and now it's time to stop. So started seeking other avenues on how to get rid of it and whatnot. Coming here seems to be helping. Get into a little bit of thought behind it, which more or less puts you back into your brain and says, okay, this isn't gonna stop me. You know, get rid of it. I think this is something, your brain's a very powerful thing, and so is your body, so use it against the substance. Seems to be helping.
Okay. It's interesting. You're doing some other stuff, though. You're going to some meetings. And
Yes.
yeah. It's interesting because with addiction to behaviors or stories, it's my experience that we cannot think our way out of it. That we can only surrender our way out of it. That we can only become aware, accept that it's there, and allow the presence of the moment to move it. And consciousness helps, you know, it to move. With the substance addictions, there is a program. I speak of it as if I don't know the program, but I know it really well, that allows us to actually go into the depths of looking at the nature of the malady, and that program recommends a spiritual experience. And this is really what we're talking about here. What is spiritual? Anybody got any stories or identities around spiritual? I mean, I think everybody would say something different, wouldn't we? You know, the witch doctor, yeah. Spiritual. So here's what I think I know about spiritual. I think that if we want to connect with Source, it only happens in the moment. And that story and identity keeps us out of the moment. And somehow we got disconnected with the moment, or with universal intelligence, or God, or the Father of Light. We got disconnected somehow, and felt that it wasn't safe to be there. So we lived in story, and we lived in shoulds and shouldn'ts. And it might have started when Mom said no. Can't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. And, it's not safe out there, and you can't. All the stories we got told as children, or we got taken to some organized religion that told us a story of a vengeful, angry God, or so we disconnected. And for me, I reconnected through drugs and alcohol. I remember when I discovered alcohol at 13 or 14, it was like, wow. I had courage. I could be, I found my source of freedom. And of course it turned around and bit me pretty hard, because it wasn't really the source. It just allowed me to drop my stories about myself. Because my story about myself was that I wasn't tall enough, I couldn't, couldn't dance, I wasn't, I wasn't good enough. My story was that I wasn't good enough. So when I discovered spirits, with like drugs and alcohol, then I felt big, and it just did, though it didn't have it doesn't have the power. It really wasn't connected to the power. It was an illusion. And so what we're talking about now, dropping our identities, looking at the things that separate us from the moment, so that we can experience the power of now, so we can experience universal intelligence, so that we can live in love and freedom, and know that that freedom in our core. And anyway, identities. Doug, you got any identities?
Well, I told you about my depression identity, but now I'm kind of like identity-less. Like I'm just really stuck in the moment. I'm not dwelling on the past, but I'm having a real hard time creating my future. I'm just like stuck.
Perfect.
I know, I think it's great.
Perfect.
Except for, gotta find a job.
Or not. So there's nothing missing in the moment, is there ever? No. No, there really isn't anything missing in the moment. Identities. I had a store. I really had an identity around that store. It was like, oh my gosh, I was the Bally guy. And I created this whole identity. I had a great little space and people would come in and James was there, we'd have a lot of fun with them and we weren't selling stores and stuff anymore, we were just doing spiritual work, but still it was, I had an identity around it. And to let that go, to surrender that. And oh no, it wasn't just the identity, it was my attachment to the identity that was difficult, you know, and anybody else have identities? Trevor, have any identities?
Well, the big identity, I guess, for me is, I mean, I worked as an artist my whole life. Basically.
Artist, yeah.
And so, yeah, that has a bunch of frustrations and stuff that kind of go around with it, I guess. There's lots of fakeness that, and especially in like the academic side of it. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like weird because, well, you know how we had that discussion about like purpose, and I was kind of like putting too much idea on it, like, oh, well, this is my purpose, but it's not. It's a talent that I can utilize, but well, and even me and Nathaniel were talking the other day too. I see it as kind of like the same way that like I hated skateboarding. Like we were talking about this in high school, into my 20s. I hated it, but I did it anyways because all my friends did it, and it just made my feet sore, and I didn't like it at all. But for some reason, I still did it, and I think that sometimes like I have a lot of like dishonesty that surrounds that the artist identity. Like I think it's because like it's I have certain resentments against a lot of people in that sort of scene and stuff like that too. And it's really like it's weird. It's like a microcosm of capitalism in general.
So I have a question.
I'm not venting. I'm just saying.
I have a question for you.
I'm going through weird.
Yes, I understand that. Do you love what you do when you're when you're creating art? Do you love that?
Yeah.
So being an artist, when you're really doing it, when you're in it, you love it.
Yeah, but I don't like all the thinking that goes involved.
Okay.
That's involved
Yeah.
Like, oh, is this going to impress whoever, or is this like there's so much theory around it?
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like and so much of it has to do with conceptual art and stuff. And I just like making it. But,
Awesome.
so yeah, so I'm kind of rediscovering myself, like the purpose of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I get it.
I'm kind of inarticulate right now because I don't know how. I don't have any identity really. So.
You don't either.
I'm kind of letting a lot of that stuff go. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that I've been reading a lot of books about like people that, composers and artists that like have relied more on chance. Like John Cage consults the I Ching when he was composing And it's really cacophonous noise to a lot of people, but I find it interesting that those people like were creating stuff that was more, came from a more spiritual realm.
Awesome.
So,
So the struggle that you have around art is the identity that comes from the educational side of things, and
the academic side, but then also like the scenes that kind of spread up around it. And
Okay.
and the thing is that the more I look at like artists that mattered and stuff, the more I realize they were always working in opposition to whatever was.
Yeah.
Like none of the great artists were ever critically adored at the time anyway, so I don't know why I'm so like cooked on being adored. Because why? So yeah, it's just kind of a weird thing. And then it
Yep.
ties into my alcoholism a bit and stuff like that too. So it's a huge yeah. I feel like it's kind of dropped off from my shoulders and kind of sunk into my gut though. I feel more nauseous about it than like really stressed out about it. I kind of figured I'll figure it all out.
Okay. Well, we'll figure it out together.
Yeah, sounds good. That way I have other people to play.
You do. You have a team. You have a team. These people are all here for you. Are you guys all here for him?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Who else wants to talk about an identity? You know, that something that maybe didn't serve them.
Nasty Nate. Yeah, so I walked around with a chip on my shoulder for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw myself as a little hoodlum, little G, little thug.
There's actually nothing little about you.
Well, I guess I'm big, right?
Yeah.
I got big because of fucking places that I've been. So, yeah, I walked around with that kind of attitude and mentality for a long time. You know, a lot of my decisions in my personal life, not my professional life, because I separated my professional life from my personal life. It's had two identities, right? Probably had more than one. When I think about it, there's multiple egos. I could identify roles that I played, just depending on who I was with. You know? So I learned to, yeah. The one that didn't serve me was a little OG. He got me in a lot of trouble.
OG.
Yeah, original gangster, man.
Oh.
Little hood rat, little hoodlum, little criminal, little badass kid walking around. Yeah, I held on to that for a long time. Thief, you know. Yeah, that little guy. He had to die for a long time, but it still is in there though, inside of me, right? And I think that, you know, different roles that we play in life as we go through our lives are just expressions of different instincts that are in us all anyway. So I feel like it's not, for me, it's not a problem of shedding all my ego. It's a problem with integrating them all, accepting them all, you know, and loving every part of myself. You know, I could slip into a really bad mind state sometimes. Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what am I doing in Calgary? Trying to get better. You know, like why am I not out kicking somebody's door down right now? You know, and I just give my head a shake, right?
Well,
Try to come back into the moment.
I'm just across the hall. You kick my door down. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, but I just give my head a shake, right? Come back to the moment.
Yeah.
Just accept it. You know, there's different parts of. I think everybody has different parts of their character, and trying to hate those parts of myself. Right? It's part of why it didn't serve me was because I started hating myself
Mm-hmm.
because of what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I wanted to kind of kill that ego.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
instead of killing it, just love it as part of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And grow and develop, like this guy was saying, with his more feminine side, his more playful side of his character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Walk the woo way.
Nice. I think it is we drop stuff, we'll become who we are. And it won't be, it'll be what it is. And as we learn to accept who we become, you know, a teacher, a lover, you know, wherever we are without attachment, you know, because I think the mind wants to say, this is who you're going to become. This, you know, or have a picture of who you're going to become, or who Doug's going to become. And if we recognize that we just don't know, I don't know who I am going to become, or, you know, most of the time I don't have no idea who I am now. And because if I'm really in the moment, I'm not any of those identities. And our ego screams for identity. It wants to know, you know, who are we going to be? If you're not going to be the hoodlum, who are you going to be? And so we can surrender into whatever the possibility is. And my attachment to financial success, my attachment to, you know, being somebody's husband, or being, you know, such attachment to identity that most of it is dropped away. And interesting to find myself with, especially more this weekend, as this idea of discussing this was coming, you know, where am I hooked on an idea of who I'm supposed to be, to just to let that go. And tell us who are a couple of your identities, or one that, you know, that maybe doesn't serve you.
I'm trying to refer back to just like recently there was a list of different archetypes of, well, life. Same thing, identities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually went through them at one point and did like a scale of 1 to 3, and then I revisited them. So I feel like it should be fresh in my mind, and I should be able to tell it to you. We've touched on a lot tonight that resonates.
Do you have any identities around health?
Yeah, I'm trying to let go of the identity of having a concussion and living with post-concussion syndrome, which in the medical world, and I try not to say this with so much ego because I come from that as an identity I'm also dropping, as well as somebody who worked in healthcare. So I'm going through a big...
Some shifts?
Yeah.
Yes. So you're letting go of an identity around as being a healthcare worker?
Healthcare worker.
What did you do there?
I was administrative and executive assistant to the executive director of one of the primary care networks.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're deep in it.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And
yeah.
so
And that's all I ever knew. My whole life was healthcare is the job that you are most secure in, and it doesn't matter how creative you are in any aspect. The only way that you're going to be able to be okay in this life is by going into a healthcare route.
wow. Isn't it funny that I asked about health? Yeah.
Yeah, so my main
Nice.
one is like, I'm dropping all the other, I want to drop all the labels
Mm-hmm.
of everything that our medical healthcare team has put into place to categorize
Yes.
our entire society.
Yes.
Because as you live with something, you don't want to feel like you're in a box of it all.
Yes,
the
yeah,
time,
yeah.
Right? So whether it's depression, anxiety, short-term memory loss.
Let's just have it all. Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and these are all things that many people suffer from every day, and it's part of everyday life.
Yes.
It's all down to really what I'm
Mm-hmm.
and be there for the people that, well, I created.
Yes.
First off, after me.
You created some people?
Well, one.
You played a part.
I played a part.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How old is that one?
9.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fun. I mean, truly, I identified for many, many years as a parent, and I actually used my kids somewhat because I didn't feel worthy of awakening, if you will, and I used to think, well, if I can get more unfucked up, there's a chance that my kids won't be so fucked up. And yeah, can you relate to that? Yeah. So I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for them. Well, whatever. Now they're gone. Oh, it's funny. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. You meditate? Yes. Every day. Nice. Like morning and night.
When I can, yes.
Yes.
To it. It's always a goal.
Yep.
That's what I would like to put into my daily routine if I'm going to humanize it all.
Yeah. I'm hoping as a group, as we go into this experiment of lifting the vibration of the group, of helping each other wake up, that we all become meditators. That we see it as a part of what we're doing, that we're meditating in the morning. I actually sat this morning for almost 2 hours, and it was, wow, it was so great, you know. And so I'm sitting, not on my little stool because my knee is still healing, and it's hard on the little stool. And so sometimes, though, I do kind of, you know, I fall. I know I'm. But if I'm sitting, at least I can, even if I have a little nap while I'm meditating, I call it meditating. And because sleeping sitting up is meditating, isn't it? Anyway, just so that. But I think that it's amazing. What?
I was going to say, you know, Lisa, are going to set intention of getting up at a certain time, no matter whether we're together or not, to kind of support each other in that.
Well, if we're going to all join you, could you make it not too early?
Just the meditation time. Stop what you're doing.
5 a.m.
So we've both been waking up at 5, but we're fighting it until like the last possible second.
Yeah, I get woke up and I'm like, oh, get up, meditate. I'm like, no.
So then we like pushed it to the last second.
So I was sitting at 7 this morning. Yep.
So, even no matter where we're at in the world,
Yes.
we're going to support each other in that.
And let's not hold that too tightly.
No,
All right?
it's an intention.
It becomes an identity.
Yeah.
I'm a meditator. You know, right? And we get hooked on.
The way you said that just reminded me of just one of Ramdas's lectures that I listened to. What he posted on the...
Yeah, isn't it great? I've listened to so much Ram Dass lately from like the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. Oh my gosh. He's really, he's
Beautiful knowledge.
kick-ass. He really is. Derek, you meditate?
Yes.
Yeah, of course you do. You're the surprise these days. I'm just so tickled that you're here and been doing this work. What do you think of the idea of us supporting each other in a group towards awakening?
It's wonderful. Yeah, absolutely.
I hope you're part of it.
I already am.
We all are, yes. Awesome. Who hasn't spoken a little bit about identity or an identity? Oh. Yeah. Project, because we want to be able to hear you.
So it's just.
I don't know. I never really knew who I was until you brought up yours. I'm a little parent as well. And I definitely want to shed that because I have a great boyfriend whose family loves my son. So I think that's time to let go.
So it's a limiting belief, isn't it? Yeah, limiting story. My gosh, you know. Oh, beautiful. How old's your little one?
He's 4.
Nice. Well, you don't have to do 18 years of it.
Yeah.
And that's the magic of what can happen here as we let go of our ideas and our beliefs around everything, relationship, and the boxes we put each other in, gay, straight, bi, open, closed, all the relation, all the, we're people, and even that we'll see if we can get past. And because all of the ideas, I'm from the Maritimes, right? I'm a New Brunswick boy.
I like to let go of the religious ones.
Yeah, we can let go of the religious ones, and not to be against any of it. Nothing to be against, it's just where we've been stuck, and such freedom can come, and there's no judgment on ourselves and on others, because as we surrender those things, we let go of, ideas of anybody ever identify with not being very smart. Can you imagine telling yourself that? Yeah. Me too. Yeah. I've often said I'm a little slow, and it's an identity. You've never said that.
I'm a blonde.
Oh gosh. You are a blonde. Is that natural?
No.
No. So you're a self-imposed blonde. Oh gosh. You didn't expect me to ask that, but did you? That's right. Yeah. Little beliefs and things we have about ourselves that we can start to surrender. And as we meditate on this, and I think a couple of weeks ago I suggested that we make notes of when we were in complaint, and I don't know if anybody did that, but I really do think we should have a book this year that we can write some things down in as stuff comes to us. Also, I'm going to suggest that we have that we exchange numbers, and if you just, when the inspiration comes, to call each other a little bit. I call people and say, how you doing? Just sometimes out of the blue, or I text them and say, how you doing? Or I love you. And and that's just we can do it without expecting anything. Just don't keep track. And the other thing is that I want to mention that if we're going to go forward as a group, I really mean it. I do need some help. I want somebody to step up later and say, David, I'll help you with some of this stuff. And let's. I'm still imagining that we're going to do this thing in March. What happens for me is that I get in my head a bit. I know this is bullshit, but I get in my head a bit thinking, oh gosh, I've got to make sure that we fill that room. And my imagining is we're going to have 60 people in the room, and we're going to do dyads, and we're going to eye gaze, and we're going to do neat things that day. We're going to dance, and we're going to eat, and we're going to dance some more, and we'll do groups, and we'll share our innermost stuff. We'll tell things that we've never told anybody, and to break out of the prison of our stories, our condemnation of ourselves. Does that sound like fun? Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of work, but and so we're not going to go and just have somebody do it all for us. We're going to engage with each other. And my idea is that we're going to spend the whole day together, like a 12-hour day, and that we'll come out of that. It's the 21st of March, and do you think we could have, we could put a group together for that? But I can't do it. I can invite people, I will, but you guys have to invite people, and and recognize that we're all going to, grow together, and we'll tell them what we're doing, and maybe they want to be part of a group that spends a year growing together, and maybe this summer we'll go do picnics, and we'll just do some neat stuff together. We'll go on a road trip. I'm just making shit up now, but right? So,
Get a bus.
a bus, yes. So anything's possible, and to grow together and to move forward. I think that's it. I feel like I got a lot from me off my chest. I feel like I was taking responsibility for all of this, and I really don't want to. I'm not going to. And that's my old way. That's the way I've been, to try and be the organizer and all of that. And so, yeah, I'm sure I'll have some input, but I'm not going to do that. JR's going to do it all. No, but we're going to ask for help, aren't we? Yes, JR's been great. And any other thoughts?
Keeps coming to me is trusting the moment,
Yeah.
which scares me
Yeah.
a lot.
And tie your camel.
And what?
Oh, just trust in Allah, tie your camel.
Because also that comes up as like, well, who am I becoming, or trying to find an identity in the future, even. Because I've worked so much to let go of my identity. Now I'm trying to find an identity.
I don't know. I mean,
My mind.
Yes, yeah.
In the moment, I'm
Yeah.
not, but my mind always keeps trying to like, okay, this.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to do this. Or I'm going to do that. And then.
You're quite an example of actually creating something out of nothing that I don't imagine you'll be running. I really don't. I think that this is an adventure. You're creating a center. It's happening. It's happening even if you can't see it happening, and it's happening right now. So the trick is, of course, to stay present in the moment and not into what will I be like when I'm running the center, or because it's not likely that you will be running the center.
That's my mind.
Yeah, you might be there and be, but it'll be.
But it's really just
have its own energy.
The faith of trusting in the moment, that every moment will present what needs to be done.
I know.
That's even what we're doing, is being able to trust in that moment.
Yes.
Everything will come together if we can really trust in that moment and share what
Mm-hmm.
you can share with asking for help.
Yeah.
All those things.
Yeah. I talked to Barry today. I told you, and Barry said, sounds like you're getting quite a bit out of the group, because I was telling him about how I was a bit in my head and had let go of a lot of my identities, and I was letting go of them, and I was sharing with JR that I even, listening to Ram Dass, and I'm crying, and there's all kinds of stuff moving. It's just this, and he said, wow. He said, I think the group's serving you pretty good. So, you know what I mean? For me being here is amazing for my own growth, and to do this, and we can all get something out of that. And I don't have any idea how it's going to unfold. And that's the thing, because like you know that it's happening, but but you're reaching out to a lot of help, aren't you?
I am now.
Yeah. Nice.
I think.
I know. So that's the trick with living in the moment, in dropping the identities, is that we let go of our perceived security. And our perceived security is actually the bars that keep us in a cage. And if we can let go of that perceived security and live in the not knowing, scary as hell. It can be, you know. Who would want to do that, right? It can be scary as hell. Yet it's so juicy, and it's so free, and it's where life is really happening, or on the edge of chaos and order, chaos and order. My friend John D. Martini said, if we're not living on the edge, we're taking up way too much room. And if we're living in the security of our story or knowing who we are, then we're way back from the edge. Let's be way out there. Let's risk. And you know, and in relationship too, and in matters of the heart. You know, call that. Well, you got a boyfriend, but call that guy. You know, just reach out. It doesn't matter if you have a boyfriend. You know, talk to people and practice being alive, and yeah, and then we become more alive. Who wants to be more alive? Yeah. Me. Okay. I think. Thank you. I'm done. But so we're going to. Can I ask you guys this? One of the ways that you can support what we're doing is to share this. Like, this is live on Facebook, and you can go on to Valley and Beyond, onto our page, and you can actually share it, and that helps. And you can go into Google and subscribe to our little Valley and Beyond page. And just those are all ways that we can help to create more a bigger splash, you know. And I guess it's okay for me to say this, that I don't have an income. This is it. I'm totally living this experiment of not. This is my job, and so if you know, if you want to get together and talk, and here's the other thing: if anybody in our group wants to just come and spend time with me and to talk about what's going on or what we're having trouble letting go of, it doesn't. You don't have to pay me. If you feel like it, you can, because it's part of. So I'm just trying to be really open about. Do you know what I mean? Instead of setting this box that, you know, okay, you got to be here at 1:15 and we're done at 2:30. And no, you know, if you come, maybe we'll jump in the car and go for a drive, or you know, we'll go down by the river and we'll sit and we'll talk about what it is that we get stuck on, and if it feels like something that you want to. I'm just going to live my livelihood this year up to, well, maybe for the rest of my life, up to the universe, however it comes together. So that's my little talk about money. And so if you're watching this, you can always e-transfer. How else do I put it out, you know? And if I don't ask, if I don't share this whole thing, I'm truly leaving it up to the universe to make sure that, to God, to the love of the people that are involved in it, to see how it unfolds. So that's it. So we're going to meditate again, because meditation is cool, and it works. And it's Ram Dass said about meditation. He said, "Don't meditate to become a better meditator. We meditate to get free." And so it, you know, it's not. Let's not be identified with meditation. Let's just recognize that it's a tool, and it helps us to drop into the space. And I get light shows. Anybody ever get light shows when they're meditating?
Yes.
Yeah, just like splashes, and it's pretty cool. Are you ready?
15 minutes.
Are we?
Yeah.
All right. 15 minutes. Good. I might go for a pee. I'm just being with what is. Huh? I will take off the mic, yeah. So if I disappear, you won't know. So we're going to sit for a bit. Whenever you're ready, we can close our eyes and when we're finished tonight and we leave, just, I'm so grateful. I want to just say that I'm really grateful for you and for this opportunity, and just leave with the intention that we're all on a path together. Whether you come back ever again, you're on this path of awakening. And ask yourself, where is this in my scheme of things? Is awakening, is enlightenment in the top 2, in the top 3? Where is it? I remember for years I traveled with my friend Paul, and Paul would say that you can't find it by looking for it, but that you will never find it without looking for it. So it's kind of a bit of an oxymoron. Recognize that if we bring it into our consciousness that I am one, I am here and now, I am love, I am awakening. We begin to see the things around us that keep us in a sleep place. It's like buying a red car, and we see red cars everywhere. When we bring our mind to the idea, or consciousness to the idea of awakening, we start to recognize, and books appear, and the right video comes up on YouTube, and all of a sudden our social media is just full of awakening memes. We become surrounded by it. People are attracted to us. We have something of real substance to share with our kids, our partners, our families. We have love. So thank you for being part of this. I thank the universe for allowing me to be part of this. Thank you, you guys. Just take your time coming back. Remember, don't take it too seriously. See you next week. Love it if you register for that thing. So I can, don't. Actually, if you don't register, then I can feel this, the whole thing of, anyway, register. Love you guys. Thanks so much.